Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in and welcome to the second episode of DroppedMic. I want to thank you guys again for joining. I know we're living through difficult times. Like we mentioned our last episode, we know people are dying, people are sick, and our hearts, our thoughts and prayers go out to all those people. But nonetheless, I want to thank you all for joining. Don't forget to share this stream with your friends and family members. Invite them to watch this very interesting topic tonight. Again, the title of tonight's topic is, can a guy and a girl be best friends? Once again, welcome to the DroppedMic. We'll be starting in a few minutes.
An army of youth from all walks of life, dedicated and devoted to making a difference in the community. We strive to be the change that we want to see, putting our God-given talents to good use while relying on Him for guidance and strength. We do not reject tradition. We simply seek improvement. By turning both strengths and flaws into assets for the Lord, we are heavily armed with mass construction weapons, those of faith, hope, love, and prayer. And we are looking to impact every single individual we encounter. We are PDF Ministry, proactive and devoted faith ministry.
All right, we're back. And with me tonight is a panel of young professionals who've agreed to, come on and share their opinion on a widely discussed topic. It's a very taboo topic. It's at the basis of a lot of arguments, a lot of discussions, debates, relationship, and even marital issues. I'll introduce everybody. I'll have them introduce themselves, actually, and they'll tell us where they're from, what they do, and then we'll jump right in. I'll start with you, Max.
Hey everybody, my name is Max. I live in the Atlanta area, and I'm a photographer and YouTube content creator.
All right, and I'll go down the line. Gearlyn.
Hi everyone, my name is Dylan. I live in the Florida area and I am a professional accountant.
All right. Thank you. Darlencia.
Hi everyone, my name is Darlencia. I am a researcher at Penn Medicine and co-president of Kide Combat Marché, a Haitian organization based in Philadelphia.
All right, thank you. And Sephora?
Hi everyone, my name is Sephora. I live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and I am the church and DroppedMic social media marketer.
Thank you, Sephora. And last but not least, Mr. Claudius Brown.
My name is Claudius. I am from Dallas, Texas, currently living in the Huntsville, Alabama area. I am officially an Oakwood University graduate, class of 2020, and I'm also the founder and director of a nonprofit called Heroes.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for introducing yourselves. Without any further delay, let us jump right into tonight's discussion. Darlencia, I'll start with you. Why don't you tell us what do you think and why, please?
About the topic.
Yes, please.
All right, so can a guy and girl be best friends? I think that this topic is very general, all right? I feel like this answer can vary with certain friends, if you're in a relationship, depending on your experience. But overall, if I were asked, can a guy and a girl be best friends? I will ask more questions. I think it's too vague. But off the bat of my head, of course, a guy and a girl can be best friends. However, when we're speaking of certain contexts, right? So let's say maybe if a guy or a girl, one of them are in a relationship, then, and they have like a girl or female best friend, I believe then it becomes a little bit, not problematic, but there becomes a gray area because it can become a little sticky. So in that regard, I will believe that, yes, a guy and a girl can be best friends, even if one of them are in a relationship. However, there has to be boundaries. But every friendship and relationship should have boundaries. That's my take on it.
Okay. Thank you. And Sephora, I know you have a similar stance. Can you tell us a little bit about what you think?
I do believe a guy and girl can be best friends. And because like I said, there's always boundaries in everything you do. So if you have a guy best friend, you will know that there's nothing more. And if there's something more, it's going to ruin the relationship. And that's when you could take it to something else, if it's okay with the other person. But I believe a guy and girl can be best friend with boundaries. Because like Darlencia said, if you're in a relationship, you have to know your limit and where your friendship stands.
Okay, I have a few questions for you guys down the line regarding this question of boundaries, but we're gonna move to Claudius. Claudius, tell us what you think, please.
I'm in favor. I believe a guy and a girl can be best friends. Boundaries, I think, is for others, but I think if my friend is with a girl, we already know, just because we're friends, the limitations of our friendship. And so I don't think, even if I'm in a relationship, I don't think that the insecurities of someone else has to be cut off because, I have a friend that I've been friends with for years. My best friend is a female. We've been friends for 20-some years. So, yeah, I'm for it.
Okay. Well, now I have a question for Gearlyn and Max, because I know you guys have a similar stance on this. So I'll start with you, Gierlyn, and then we'll hear from Max. I can't really hear Gierlyn. I don't know.
I think you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now, Gierlyn.
Okay, sorry about that. For me, I do not believe that a guy and girl can be best friends, but not best friends. Too often we find that the guy and the girl has several expectations that are usually not met, and it draws so much confusion. So to avoid that, I think it'd be best that they just stay in their friend lane and not try to progress to their best friend level.
Okay. And Max, what is your stance on that?
I definitely think a woman and a man can be best friend with certain limitations, of course. I think if you're before marriage and you guys are okay with it, I think it's cool. The only thing is, I think once anyone gets married, at that point, I don't think it's really possible to be best friends with someone of the opposite sex when you're married. And actually, beyond that, I think whenever you're married, no matter what your situation is, your best friend should be your spouse.
Okay, that's a very good point, Max, and I have to come back to that in a little bit. Okay, so this question now is for my yes folks, right? Darlencia, Sephora, and Claudius. A few years back, I was having a conversation with a friend, and so they told me that whenever a guy and a girl are best friends, right, it's because one of them secretly loves the other person, or they have feelings for the other person. The friendship, they'd rather keep the person as a friend, right? So can you guys please tell me what you think about that?
Okay, so what I think about it is like, I necessarily love my best friend as a friend, but nothing more than that. So I think it depends on the person. Like, everyone is different. Like, everyone views friendship a different way. So I can't answer that from experience. So I think it depends on the person.
Okay. And Claudius or Darlencia, do you guys have anything else to add?
Can you ask the question?
Okay, so basically the scenario is typically when a guy and a girl are best friends, it's because one of them secretly has feelings for the other, right? But instead of moving to that next step and risking the friendship, they'd rather stay, as friends and keep the other person around.
Okay, for me, I think that is possible, but I don't think it's the generic understanding. I think, just friendship is what it is. So often, this is 2020, all right? So we're not back in our parents' ages where back in the day, they were always trying to do stuff. But now we're in 2020 where friends can be any shape, color, size, anything. And I just think that my friendship shouldn't be what speculation or I just think it is. So
okay,
that's not always.
What about you, Darlencia?
That's not always the case.
Okay.
I agree, Claudius. I definitely agree, and with you as well. I feel as though it's so sticky. I feel like it's so circumstantial. You can't really say just because two people are best friends, one of them secretly is in love with someone, but it is possible. I was in a situation like that as well, but I feel as though wouldn't that be like a perfect situation for you to like express links since this is your best friend anyway? So why not be like, hey, bro or sis, you already know what the person like. You already, you guys already communicate. I will see it as just kind of, expressing how you really feel. But I will not agree that that is every case, that just because two people are best friends, one of them secretly is in love with the person.
Okay, I had a question for Gierlyn and Max, but you mentioned something that really caught my attention here. So Here's something. A lot of times, right, you're best friends with somebody, or you're just friends with somebody. You tell them how you feel, right? You say, hey, I got feelings for you, or I think I may have feelings for you. Then you create this awkward stage. The friendship is basically over because now, oh my gosh, he likes me. Or oh my gosh, she likes me. Right? So what do you think about that, darlings? Do you think that nothing's gonna change, or is, tell me what you think. I don't know.
It does become sticky after that. Expressing your feelings towards somebody and then you still get friend zoned. That's kind of
Yeah.
weird. But what do they say? What do the young people say in 2020? Shoot your shot. Shoot your shot.
You
No,
miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Take it.
yes. Express,
All
express how
right,
you feel
so
to the
I have
person.
a question for Gillen, and then I have a question for Max. So Gillen, you said a guy and a girl
Yeah.
can be friends, but not best friends. How
Absolutely.
do you can you tell me what the difference is, please?
Oh, there's a very big difference. So, okay, based on like any friendship, it begins with a common interest. It begins with a level of intimacy. You find some type of commonality between you and the person, and then develops, expands, and so forth. Now, that friend state, that's a safe zone. But then now, after you spend more time with the person, then, now there's a different expectation. You guys move into that best friend. Quite often, I see it too many times when men and women become that best friend, there's a different expectations that are met. They expect this person to be completely vulnerable, which is fine within if it was like the same sex relationship. But it's too often that cross sex relationship they find it maybe
It is cut off somewhere. Okay, Max, I have a question for you, Max.
Okay.
So Max, you mentioned that you can be best friends before marriage,
Yep.
but then after marriage you can no longer be best friends, right? So how do you make that transition, right? You were best friends with someone, now you're married and you're no longer best friends with that person. What happens to that friendship?
So when it
Please tell
comes
us,
to
Max.
any marriage, period, right? Growing up, we all have our peoples that we're real cool with, close friends, best friends, etc., right? When it comes to any friendship whatsoever, when you get married,
Yeah.
there should be a certain, you shouldn't close the doors, but friendships should take a step back a little bit. Even a best friend.
Okay.
Now, whether male or female, same sex, whether opposite sex, they should move back a little bit. So that's the basic premise. And especially if you're talking about a man and a woman, a little, a further step back. Now, you don't need to end the friendship. You don't need to never communicate again. You just establish good and healthy boundaries and you keep it moving. That's just that's just the best way to keep a healthy marriage.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Max. So I have a question for Darlencia, Sephora, and Claudius. So you guys have best friends of the opposite sex, or you guys are arguing for the fact that a guy and a girl can be best friends. So according to Max's point, right, that after marriage you can no longer have a best friend of the opposite sex. What do you guys think your approach to this would be? I'll start with you, Claudius.
Okay, my approach is I believe that there should be a distinction. If that's my wifey and I have a female best friend, I believe
Okay.
that her role and importance should be there and it should be noted. But I believe
Okay.
also that my friendship doesn't have to change. It will just be of greater importance with my wife. That's just me. And
Okay.
I believe
Okay.
if you're
What
mature
about you,
enough,
Sephora?
it shouldn't be.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Claudius.
Um,
Okay. Okay. Sephora, go ahead.
I agree with what Claudia said. you can still be best friends with a limit. Like what Max said, your husband should be your best friend, but you can always still have a best friend, since you have that bond, you were friends, so that should change. There's be some limit, but you can still have a best friend.
All right, I want to hear from you, Darlencia.
First of all, I just want to shout out Max because I feel like a lot of guys would not really just say that, would not admit that. And I think that's so true. Okay, so as for me, right, my guy best friend is my brother. So shout out to my brother. He's like my best friend. Anyone who encounters me, like if we have a friendship or something like that, I'll talk about my brother all the time. So regardless of the fact, like if if I'm in a relationship or get married, I can't even imagine that friendship or relationship changing at all. But I do have another guy friend, right, who's I'm very close with as well. That's a best friend. And I could understand why that may have to change or may have to have some sort of limit just to respect the relationship I do have. Only because, let's say if I'm feeling down, my guy best friend, he brings me food or something like that. Or you get what I'm saying? That can kind of cross some boundaries to my boyfriend or husband. But yeah, so I think, yeah, I agree. I think that there would have to be like a limit involved. But Claudius, you kind of said that the friendship wouldn't change. So I kind of want to hear more about that. Like, why wouldn't your friendship, like, how could you maintain that friendship and it don't change? Like,
so what's the last part you said? You said how can you take that friendship?
Like, yeah, you said that your friendship would not change if you were to be married.
I don't think it should change. I believe that the distinction of this being my wifey would be an understanding. Let's take my friends and family now. So like, I'll hang out with my friends, but if my sister calls me, my friends know that my sisters have an importance in my life. It's just what it is. There's no difference in the friendship. They just know that that's the importance in my life. And thus, I would parallel that to being in a marriage relationship. The friendship can still be there, but the importance and who I marry and who I wifed up has greater priority in my life.
But not everyone respect those boundaries, It depends if that person respects those boundaries.
I come from a different background where people in my life, we respect each other's boundaries. But the grand scheme of things for people in life, that's just not the norm. But in my life, that's the norm. So, but I believe also you as a person have to establish those interaction boundaries. But we've always had it. Like my whole friendship, family circle, we always have had it.
Got it.
Okay. Now, this brings me to a question, Claudius. This is a general question, so I want to hear from the guys first, and then the ladies. All right? So let's say, for instance, well, Gillian, you're going to have to put yourself in our shoes for a little bit. So let's say, for instance, you have a best friend of the opposite sex, right? Then you meet someone that you really like, then you guys decide to start a relationship, right? But that person is totally opposed to the idea of, friendship with the opposite sex. They don't want to meet you halfway. They don't want to meet the other person, that best friend of yours. They don't even want to hear about it. So my question is, how do you approach a situation like this with a potential significant other? I want to hear from you, gentlemen, and then our ladies.
I've had
I can go.
Let me just hear from you, Max. Go ahead, Max.
Repeat the very last part of that question again. I'm sorry.
Okay, so that significant other, right, that you now have is totally against you being friends with the opposite sex. They don't want to hear about it. They don't want to meet that friend of yours. They don't want to hear you out. You know, it's just categorically no. They
So
tell you
said,
you have to cut
not,
that
no
friendship,
not
or else
even
there's
best friends. Just no
yeah,
friendship.
yeah. They don't believe in friendship with the opposite sex. Period.
Okay. All right. So one thing that I've learned in my life is everybody has different rules, boundaries, expectations, and what's the word I'm looking for? Non-negotiables. Everybody has different non-negotiables, right? So someone like that would have to find someone who has the same views and shares those values and those non-negotiables. But to say, because I've dated people like that, specifically one I can think of, who wanted all other friends gone, and I have to tell that's not an option. So obviously you would have to make a decision because you know this from the beginning. So you have to figure out, okay, does this work for me or does it not work? For me, honestly, no. To cut off
Okay.
friendship, I don't believe in that at all. I think it's stupid. It works for some people, not for me. I believe your friends are. Now, like I said, you learn to have different boundaries when you're in a relationship. So for example, like if we're hanging out in Dallas, we can hang out till 3 o'clock in the morning. But if you're married, you can't do these things necessarily because you got to go into. But to cut out all friendship, that wouldn't work for me, and she could not be my wife. I would have to find someone who respects our friends as well.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Max. Now let me hear from you, Claudius.
Yeah, your key word was potential. That was your key word for me. You said potential um, spouse. I'm not. I'm not deleting these love friendships I have created for whatever. I'm not doing it. It's not happening. So if you're potentially even thinking of our interaction is going to be like that, goodbye for me. I'll take 200, Alex. That's it for me. So
All right, my ladies, let me hear from you guys.
So what if the person is causing like the relationship to kind of like this, like, you know, separate, like they're actually like have an ill intent?
You mean the
Oh,
best
I guess
friend
I'll
or
answer that.
the significant other?
The friend cut him, right? I would do the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would just have a
Understandable.
phone conversation.
I'm sorry.
I would have a conversation. I don't think people have conversations with people these days. So I would be like, "Hey, this will not flow. We're not doing this. And if you can't follow that, you know, you gotta go."
Agreed.
You would have that conversation with a friend, have a conversation with your significant other.
The friend.
Friend. Yeah, he's saying if the
Because some
friend is
people make
toxic to your relationship, if the friend is toxic to
yeah.
your relationship, have that conversation. Don't just cut them off. Have that conversation. Let them know the boundaries. Let them know what they're doing or saying that's wrong. And if they cross the line, if they keep crossing the line, it's pretty much over. So yeah, I agree.
You guys are making this a little bit too complicated, though. So here's the thing: the friend is not being toxic to the relationship. You know, it's just the
Okay.
significant other is just not okay with friendship with the opposite sex. That's the scenario.
They
I
gotta
would
go.
definitely have asked significant other why, or the friend. I would have to ask my significant other why is that, to make sure that there isn't an insecurity that's there. That's very important. I will have to ask, do they see my friends a possible threat, or what is it about? Is it just the cross-sex relationship period, or what drives them to that conclusion that they don't believe at all, period? I have to agree with Claudius, is that, you know, I'm not just going to cut you off that easily unless that friend is bringing so much intent into my relationship. That's something different. But you can't walk in, and I'm really thinking about several experiences that, and I want you guys to know up front that I used to be at one point in my life, I used to be on that, yeah, a man and a woman, they can actually be best friends. At one point in my life, I was 100% perspective, absolutely so. But throughout my experience, when I see so many complications with so much confusions, especially often with my ex-male best friend, because my husband is now my best friend, whenever they would date somebody, whatever it may be, I mean, day one, the woman would not like me at all. I mean, no, absolutely nothing of. I mean, my ex-best friend would do the diligence to say, like, hey, you know, I have a female best friend, you know, his name is Keelan, like, she's cool. Up and from the minute that she shook my hand, several occasions, I used to have two male best friends. On several occasions, it was just that I'm not going to say that shield that was automatically placed over, but I was stuck this nice little cape in the zone. Like, is it me as a friend? Am I doing something wrong? I mean, I have my boundaries, or it's just naturally whoever the women that my male best friends date, they just naturally like the cross-sex relationship, period. And it wasn't until I have become a little bit older, and it's definitely not until I become married, I see the complications behind. Now, if my another say like, you having any male friends, I said friends, not best friend. Oh, we're gonna have that conversation. If this person has been there throughout my whole entire life, there has to be a reason why, a good enough reason for me to consider, like, how can I make this situation comfortable? Now, if you say if you don't like that male best friend being my best friend, oh, that's easy. 1, 2, 3. I will cut that relationship off. We can be friends, but you will no longer be my best friend.
Okay. Very, very good point, Gillian. There's something very interesting that you've mentioned, right? How the spouse may be the cause of the insecurities. You know, maybe that person came into that new relationship with some baggage from the previous relationship, but I feel like that's something they need to deal with, right? Before they come into this new relationship. It's kind of like, I don't know, therapy for them they need to go through. But so here's something. It has been proven that if you go through a traumatic event or something real thrilling with somebody else, you typically end up catching feelings for that person. You know, you go through a disaster with somebody of the opposite sex, you know, there's a slight chance that you may fall in love with that person down the line. So how would you guys, my yes people, you know, work with your boundaries to prevent something like this from happening?
I think you should talk it out between each other, you know, and see where, like, okay, this happened. Is it because we have feelings for each other that is actually there? Or is it because we went through that traumatic experience and we feel like because we went through that, we should be together? So I think it's something you should talk amongst each other and not just go through that by yourself.
Okay. What about you? Do you have anything else to add to that, Darlencia?
I think when you think of the context of relationship or just falling, having feelings for someone, you think of how does that person make you feel, right? So essentially, when you go through something traumatic, the first thing you don't think of is, you know, I'm close to you because you're my friend. I'm close to you because, you know, you're here with me during a difficult time. You understand me, you're helping, you're supporting me. And I think, you know, when you go through something traumatic, you're vulnerable. So whoever is around you when you're vulnerable and is, you know, receptive or not receptive, but, you know, it's just supporting you in a way that you need support. I think just naturally, that's just kind of how, you know, we were created. Naturally, you just kind of build feelings for a person, whether you're attracted to them or whether that was the intent. I think it's just a natural thing.
Okay. So I have one last scenario, guys, before we take any questions from the audience. And before we take the questions from the audience, we're going to take a quick break. But I do have one last scenario for you guys. So, most friendships, right, they fail at one very simple test. Let's say, for instance, your best friend, right, is being cheated on. Or they're in an abusive relationship, unfortunately. Right? Obviously, you're that shoulder for them to cry on. You're their safe space, right? They come to you, they tell you all their problems. You know, most guys, you know, you feel so hurt. You know, it's like, I can't stand, you know, sitting here and then listening to her go through this, right? Knowing that I can offer her better. Or the woman can say, you know, it's so infuriating, you know, he's going through this. I'm here. I've been here this whole time, right? And these are the moments when you're your most vulnerable, right? And a lot of times what ends up happening for comfort, they either sleep with each other, right? Or one of them reveals how they feel about the other. Like, hey, you know, I've loved you for 10 years. I've loved you for 5 years. I've always been there, you know. Whenever you needed somebody, I was there, you know, and things get awkward. You know, so my question is if you guys are in a situation like this, how do you navigate something like, you know, something so tricky?
You know, that scenario is so sketchy. And for me, if it's the opposite that's in a traumatic experience, whatever it may be, because I understand how vulnerabilities and emotions can take the best of someone. If I know this offhand personally, I would probably keep one a safe distance at having that conversation. And if it could be held over
Yeah.
phone, that's even better because I read
Okay.
these and it actually said, especially dealing with marriage, it's very, very important that, you know, you have to watch who you are talking to when you're going through a traumatic experience or whatever it may be, because you're so much in a vulnerability that a touch, even if someone gives you a hug, a handshake, can send a different message to you and operating within that vulnerability to where it can lead to conclusion and other stuff. But for me,
Okay.
if I know that if my friend, I can't say best friend, is in a traumatic experience, we're that conversation. I prefer to have it over the phone, not at a physical place that, you know, we're both sitting in front of each other. And if it has to be held face to face, my husband's going to be right next to me. Because you need a third party there just to make sure that the emotions are controlled well in a safe environment, because vulnerabilities lead from one stage to another and to another. And then last thing is oops, and all the other stuff.
Okay. Anyone else has anything to add?
I have a question.
So the scenario, go ahead.
What the scenario is, one of the friends in a relationship or not?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Yes.
They are in a relationship. Are they in a relationship or are they married or just
Either
casual
way,
dating?
in a relationship
Okay.
or married.
I think it's
Go ahead,
completely
Max.
different, and that's the same question I had that Claudius had. So if you're not married, you're single. You could be dating, you could be in a relationship, but you're still single. If your best friend or your good friend is going through something, a traumatic experience, what you said is a fact. The way you handle it, you know, so if you get handsy, you know what I mean? It could affect everything. It could affect how the person feels because you're that comforting touch and you're helping them through that scenario. So if you're in a situation where you're not married but in a relationship, you don't need your significant other there. You can go take care of it yourself. Just be cautious so that you keep, you know, you don't cross a line and it gets a little bit too sketchy. Now, if you're married and your best friend or your friend is going through a traumatic situation, bring your spouse along. You know what? We're all gonna help you out together. So it's gonna be a group thing. It's gonna be, we got you. We're here for you. But yeah, not by yourself. Don't do that.
Okay. Okay. Darlencia, Sephora, Claudius.
Max took my response right out. He just I totally agree to that.
Great minds think alike.
Okay, what about you, Claudius?
Yeah.
I don't think it's a conversation of friendship. I think that's a conversation of self-control. I don't think that a situation should determine my interaction with my friend. I think the boundaries that need to be established, if that is the case, I'm saying if that is the cause of me having that type of interaction with them, those boundaries don't need to be established with my friend, but with myself about what I am going to do. My friend, I was like, I'll use a personal example. One of my best friends, her boyfriend committed suicide, and I was there to comfort her. We didn't have no sexual interaction or any type of closeness, but I was there for her as a friend, and that was it. So I don't think I don't think that closeness or that intimate connection has to take place if we're just friends. Ever.
Okay. What about you, Sephora?
I agree with both Max and Claudius because even if you have like that, they're going through something and you're there for them. If you're just friend, in the back of your head, like that's my friend. There's nothing more. So why would I, put myself in a situation where they'll try to do that? And I understand they're in a vulnerable place, so they might do something, but it's like, it's up to you to tell them stop. Like, okay, you're going through something, so this is not you right now. This is just your emotion taking over you. So you tell them, say, okay, and if you feel like, you should take some space from that person, like your friend, then you should take some space and let them figure out what they're feeling and if it's just that.
For your opinions and I guess your opening statements so far. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, and I want to remind you guys that you're watching DroppedMic, and this is episode 2, and the topic that we're discussing tonight is, can a guy and a girl be best friends? We're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back. Don't go anywhere.
An army of youth from all walks of life, dedicated and devoted to making a difference in the community. We strive to be the change that we want to see, putting our God-given talents to good use while relying on Him for guidance and strength. We do not reject tradition. We simply seek improvement. By turning both strengths and flaws into assets for the Lord. We are heavily armed with mass construction weapons, those of faith, hope, love, and prayer. And we are looking to impact every single individual we encounter. We are PDF Ministry, proactive and devoted faith ministry. An army of youth from all walks of life, dedicated and devoted to making a difference in the community. We strive to be the change that we want to see, putting our God-given talents to good use while relying on Him for guidance and strength. We do not reject tradition. We simply seek improvement. By turning both strengths and flaws into assets for the Lord, we are heavily armed with mass construction weapons, those of faith, hope, love, and prayer. And we are looking to impact every single individual we encounter. We are PDF Ministry, proactive and devoted faith ministry.
I want to remind everybody that you can call in if you have questions. The number for you to call in is 903-345-1733. You can call us if you have a question. You can write your questions in the comments below on Facebook or YouTube, and then we'll ask the panel to answer your questions. All right, guys, is everybody here? Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
All right. So we have a question. Someone asked a question on Facebook. They said, what can you tell your best friend that you cannot tell your significant other? Interesting.
Okay.
Anybody can answer.
I don't think there is anything that you can tell your best friend that you can't tell your significant other, because like I said, if you have a significant other, you can you have those boundaries, you have those limits, whereas you have that significant other to comfort you. It's not like always go to the best friend, but then sometimes if you're going through, I don't know, let's say you've known that best friend for a while and they probably can understand something more. Like you can talk to your significant others with it as well, but he probably can't understand what you're going through. Whereas your best friend who's been there and stuff, knowing that what he went through with you, and that it's just, I feel like certain things your significant other probably won't agree with you on or won't see your point of view, whereas your best friend could. So you can still talk about everything. It's just there's different point of view. There's different opinions on that scenario.
I totally agree. I think that we were created to have relationships, all types of relationships. Like God wants us to be in relationships. So there's a place for our significant other. There's a place for our best friends. I feel as though, just like as Sephora said, there shouldn't really be any limits to what you tell your best friend or significant other. I mean, what you tell your best friend. That was the question, right? Yeah. So, yeah, I definitely agree to that. I definitely agree.
Gearland, Max, Claudius?
I agree too as well. I believe there's certain conversations that I should have with my intimate one rather than my best friend.
Okay.
But I think those are all explained within those boundaries.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. We have another question. Oh, go ahead, Max.
Did Gillian have something to say?
Along the lines, I don't think there's anything that I wouldn't tell my husband as my best friend. I don't think there's anything of course, we have a no secret base. The only time that I would hold back information is maybe if it's something deep as like someone's prayer request or something. But other than that, there wouldn't be anything held back for me personally.
Okay.
Yeah, I personally
What
think
about
that's
you,
a
Max?
recipe for disaster. I'll be straight up.
Yes, it is. It is.
I'm just gonna put it like that, because what
It
happens
really
is
is.
that when you're married, we're not talking about a relationship. They're single and married. We're talking about married. When you're married, your best friend your husband or your spouse, husband, wife, whatever, should know everything. Period. You shouldn't have secrets from one another. Now, unless you're gonna
Absolutely.
throw them a surprise birthday party, a surprise gift, and you're trying to get somebody to set it up, I got you. That's cool. But when you have things that you share with your best friends that you don't share with your spouse, you're creating a potential problem down the line. Now, I don't think there's anything that you can. There's some things that you should not tell your significant other that you share with your spouse. The only time there's things that you could tell your friend, your close friend, that you don't tell your spouse is if your spouse is abusive. If it becomes a problem in your relationship, they're abusing you physically, mentally, anything like that, not a problem, you want to go for help, get help. That's fine. But if everything is good over here, yeah, don't do that. That's gonna lead to
Okay. All right. We have another question. Someone on YouTube said, is it fair to change your circle of friends just because your spouse or partner feels uncomfortable with your friends? What do you guys think?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
She said yes. She said yes.
Who said yes?
Absolutely.
Whoa,
I did.
girl.
Notice they said.
What?
Notice they said spouse.
Mm-hmm.
Notice they said spouse. And now, I don't know. You guys remember that TV show Martin? And it was really, really weird. Where you had, her best friend and Martin were constantly clashing heads over and over again. And the disaster that leads to is if my spouse has a problem with my circle of friends and he presents very good reasons, I have to take on that decision. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and cut off my friends, whoever it may be, because at the end of the day, no one wants to deal with that friction. I'm telling you, like, it may be different when it comes to relationships, but in a marriage, that friction, I mean, if that's an argument that can be avoided, an easy factor just by eliminating this person, I'm for it, 1,000%.
Can that?
Okay. Just before we continue, guys, I believe we have somebody on the line. Can I send them through, G? All right. We have a call. Yes, hello.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello? You can hear me? All right.
Yes, we can.
I would like to say good evening to everyone that actually listened. I'm so glad you guys have this conversations going on a Friday night. The question I asked, the question that I asked is about, I was the one that asked the question about what can you tell the best friend, and you cannot tell your husband. And the thing is, what I'm trying to say is, if you actually can tell your husband everything, there's no secret that you can tell your husband, what's the purpose of having a best friend then? So if there should be no secret for your husband, you should keep any secret for your husband. So what's the purpose of having a best friend? That's my question. I think there's no purpose of having a best friend, because your best friend should be your husband or your wife. Because if you have a problem, you should be able to go to your husband. But if you cannot do that, that means that you should be married, period. You shouldn't be married at all because your best friend should be your best friend should be your husband no matter what. But if you got something to say that your best friend that you cannot tell your husband, so what's the purpose of getting married? Period. There shouldn't be any marriage on that situation because you cannot go to your husband when you actually need something. So when it becomes to abusive part that Max talked about, you should be able to see that ahead of time. You see, there's maybe sometimes people cannot see it because of love. They say love is blind. That's what a lot of people said. But at the same time, if you cannot go to your husband for anything at all, there should be any marriage. That's my opinion. Hey, I'm not. That's the opinion I'm saying. I should have a best one to go to if I really want to talk about something about my relationship.
Yes, sir.
So my relationship should go with my husband or my wife. If I go to my wife, I've got something going on with relationship. Yes, you could go to your husband if you actually got, if you want, the person want to give you advice. If a person want to give you advice, yeah, that's fine. But when you come to anything about relationship, what can you go to your husband? What things that you cannot tell, you can tell your best friend, you cannot tell your husband. But if there's a situation that you would rather go to your best friend than your husband, and there is a problem between that situation. That's all I'm saying.
All right.
What's his name?
All right. Well, thank you very much for your
Well said. Well said.
What's his name?
I don't know if anybody wants to add anything to that from the panel.
I definitely would add to that because he talked about the point that I said. So, first of all, life happens. There's times where people change, people evolve. So there's times where your relationship started young, whatever, everything was copacetic, beautiful. And then later on, the stress of life affects a person. Someone loses a job. They were a top tier, high executive. They lose everything, and they flip on you. It happens. So in a situation like that, if of course you don't just run outside as soon as that problem happens, but if you see that you're in a ongoing toxic relationship, and things you obviously didn't have this problem before, and you need help, get the help from the outside person, your friend, whoever you need to get help from. But so that's the one part I disagree with the caller, and I wish he said his name. The brother was fired up. That's why I get it. So in that scenario, if something changing in your life, yeah, you got to seek help from outside. Do that. But everything else, he's 100% right. Your spouse should be the person you go to for everything. If you have secrets that your best friend knows, or so-called best friend, but your spouse doesn't know, you're setting yourself up for some issues down the line.
I think that's
now,
where
I have a. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I was saying that I think that's where the difference lies, because it's so generic that if we're speaking of marriage, then yeah, I'm with the caller. You know, like you know what I'm saying. Speaking of just relationships, you know, dynamics changes. You know, the boundaries are less harsh than not harsh, but the boundaries are less than it would be in a marriage. You get what I'm saying? But yeah, I can agree to disagree. That's my point. Okay.
Well, I have a comment on that.
Yeah.
You said me? Okay.
Go ahead,
you know. Oh, okay.
Me or Claudius? Okay.
Yeah, you're good. Go ahead.
I think it's important. I know that we spoke on and the caller spoke on the lines of marriage, but I don't think it's that much different from a relationship than it is in a marriage, especially if I'm in a relationship with someone. I'm in a relationship with this person because I see this person as my potential spouse. And even so with that, like, even if in my single days, like if I was to share something with my best friend and I wouldn't tell my significant other. That too, that can cause a disaster as well. I don't think that, we can only place this scenario and just be like, oh, absolutely 1000%, because it's going to reveal itself somewhere down the line. I'm really thinking about, and it takes away from that growth within a relationship if your best friend only knows something about you and your significant other doesn't. It really does, because the point of you being the best friend with that person, your relationship has met this climax. It's been climbing, it's fine, but then now you want to have and share that same intimacy with your significant other as well. And I'm talking about intimacy along the lines of conversations and vulnerabilities. So when you only are giving this to your best friend, you can't give that to your significant other, just regular boyfriend and girlfriend, you're honestly taken away from the potential growth of that relationship. I don't know if I'm not gonna say I don't know. I can't say that this only applies to just to marriage itself. It goes also on along for a single relationship as well too.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I think we have another caller on the line. All right. Yes. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. All right. So I wanted to make a comment based on what all the panelists have said, but also to tie it back to what one of the previous callers, the guy who was fired up,
relationship
his comment about, how could you possibly have anything at all in the world that...
I'm not sure if you have a video playing in the background. Can you put that volume down all the way, please?
Okay. Let's see. Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay. So he was saying that he doesn't believe that there could be anything at all in the world that you would be able to tell your best friend and not be able to tell your significant other or your spouse. And I think the problem is that no one would ever question that if that best friend was someone of the same sex, because of course there's always going to be a subject that you can talk to your best friend that you wouldn't necessarily, it wouldn't make sense for you to talk about it to your spouse or significant other. I think the issue is more that if that best friend is of your opposite sex, it brings some insecurity from the spouse or the significant other. It's not really the idea that you could have something to talk about to your best friend that you couldn't speak to your spouse, because I think that in real life there are many instances, like it might be tied to the personality of the spouse. It might be you shared some experience in the past with the best friend that the spouse wouldn't understand. So I think that it's probably some insecurity from the spouse or the significant other. But I don't think it's a ridiculous notion at all that there would be at least one subject that, you're like, it's not for the spouse, it's not for the significant other, it's a best friend thing. I think that when that best friend shares your sex, nobody questions that. People understand it. But it's just, if it's the opposite sex, it's just people think, oh, so you like this person more than I do, or like, why is this person more special when it comes to that subject that you can't open up with me? So that's what I think.
Okay, very interesting point. Very interesting point. Thank you very much for calling.
Thank you.
I think we have another caller on the line. Ooh, they're coming in hot, guys. Okay. But before we take that call, guys, I have a question for the panel, right? Are we really responsible for significant others' insecurities?
No.
I think someone asked this question, but yes, that's a question. But we're gonna hold on. We're gonna hold
in
on
marriage.
to that. So I can take this
In
caller.
marriage, 1000%. Yes.
Yeah, in marriage is different.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. Let me take this call real quick.
You can't just ask that question and not let us answer.
Yeah, bounce.
Hello?
I was gonna say like, no,
Give me a couple minutes, guys. A couple minutes. All right. Yes. Hello.
Yes. Can you hear me properly?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Well, hello. My name is Katia. Hi to my best friend
Hmm.
Sephora. I had a question for the lady who believes that um, she should be able to cut off her best friend. That's simple. My question to that is how, even if you had a relationship with the person since you were children, since you were childhood best friends, why is it that easy for you to be able to just leave the friendship because you found someone new and what you would say is your new best friend? Why would you do
Well, it's
Okay.
almost. It,
Go
I
ahead,
think she was
Gila.
talking to me. I don't know.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
This is on you.
um, and we are speaking on loan the lies of marriage. The reason why I'm not the reason why it becomes a little difficult because at the end of the day, if again I said if my spouse brings good reasonings that I agree with, and whether I agree or not, if I see so much being threatening towards our marriage, I'm going to cut that off. And is when I cut it off, it's not as if I dismiss this person from my life in general, but it's kind of like if we used to chat like this, I mean, I'm not going to be disrespectful to you if I see you in the streets or whatever. I'll still say hello, but things change. Things change when you get married, and if there is a level of uncomfortability, if I can't even label that as a word, but if my spouse feels uncomfortable about a friend that I have and does not feel comfortable, and number one, I have to say this too, add on to that. The only way that I will cut them off completely is if now we were dating, my significant other had an issue with this person, and then now we're coming to marriage. It's the same thing over and over again. I don't want to be stuck in the middle where I feel like I have to make a decision because at the end of the day, if it came down to decision, it's going to be on my spouse 1000% because at the end of the day, this is this person I stood in front of the altar with God and I went and said like, hey, we're a team, we're a unit. There are things that we're going to go by X, Y, and Z. And unfortunately, if it means that if I have to cut somebody off because you presented valid reason, then I have no choice but to go ahead and accept that. And as my best friend, and I can vouch for my best friends, they would honestly understand that. Like, you know what? I respect you and your marriage at the end of the day and keep it moving. But it wouldn't be to the fact that, if I see you outdoors, I'm not able to speak. But the limitations and the dynamics of our friendship, it just won't be the same anymore if my husband says otherwise. It just won't be. And at the end of the day, as my best friend would respect that. I can say that on my end, my best friend would respect that. And that's the same sex
Okay.
relationship, by the way.
Very good. Very good. Um,
I have a
so
question.
yeah, so before I go ahead and then you guys can go back to that question I asked earlier.
What was the
Okay.
Go ahead,
question again?
Sephora.
You
What?
gotta
Which one?
say it.
1,000 years ago?
Oh, the question was,
No.
are you responsible for your significant other's
Oh,
insecurities?
Oh, good one.
Yeah.
Okay. What reason would you need to have? Like, what good reason would your husband have to give cut off all your friends? He said all your friends. He didn't like none of your friends. So, what reason would you need and to like what would be his reason for to make you to cut off all your friends? Cause
if
Can
they're
I can
tearing
I jump into this?
down,
yeah, you go ahead.
if they're
No, go
tearing
ahead.
as a
No,
woman, if they're tearing me as a woman, they're tearing down my growth as a woman. They're spiritually toxic to my life. Because just because we've been best friend doesn't mean that they've always had the best vision for me. Because you can have people who are label themselves as a best friend, but then can be secretively stabbing you in the back as well. And as my husband, if he able to see things that I haven't seen my whole life, especially me, I'm a very, 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 very generous person. So if my best friends, I put strong quotes behind that, are taking advantage of me and my husband sees this for so long, he's like, you know what? I don't like this person. I don't like how your friends treat you. You have to cut them off. You present the reason. I might have to chuck the deuces on you on that one. Because if he sees something that's affecting my growth as a woman, that's affecting my growth as a child of God, he's able to see something that I can't see, I would have to respect him and go ahead and cut that friendship off.
Didn't like them just because he does just not like them, and he just wants control over it. Because there's guys like that; they just want control over their wife, and they just want to know what she's doing, who she's friends with, or whatever. Like and the thing is, he's like probably very manipulative and knows how to get you to get on his side and to make you see things from his way, even though that's not how it's seen. So.
But if it would have started during dating, I don't think it would have started during marriage. So I would have seen
it could change
during dating.
It could change.
I mean, it could change.
It could change.
I don't know. You know, I don't know. It will fully change 1,000% when you just become this brand new person when you're married. Like, you know, everybody come off right now. Like, no,
it happens. No, trust me.
I don't know about that.
Let me hear from Max. Let me hear from Max, and then Claudius, and then Darlencia.
So here's the reality of my life. Never say never. I've seen so many different scenarios with so many different relationships. I've seen scenarios where someone started out one, and later on in the middle of their life, they have a midlife crisis, man or woman, and they flip and they become someone completely different. So I never say never. I've seen it all. So in a situation like that, you have to take it on a case by case scenario. And like Sephora was saying, she was absolutely right. Is it that your friends are really cool, but your significant other is they themselves, they're insecure and toxic, and they're causing a problem, and they want to isolate you from your friends, which happens. And so in that scenario, you have to pray and you have to look to see where the problem really lies, because sometimes it's not the friends, it's actually your spouse that's flipping on you. But sometimes, and you're gonna know, especially if you're a praying person, you know, you're gonna ask God for guidance. If your friends are toxic and your significant other tells you that, unless you can't really think, you would know signs, you would see it, and you would be able to say, you know what, yeah, you know, he's right. Because every other second they're like, yo, bump your husband, leave that loser, that dude's whack, cut him, things like that. Or let's go clubbing, let's do things that are against the marriage. So if you're talking about that scenario, yes, then your spouse is right. But if your friends are going to church and taking you to Bible studies and stuff like that, and your significant other's like, I don't like them, cut them out, then you have to understand the problems over here. So it happens on both sides.
Okay. Claudius, let me hear from you, Claudius.
After like 100 years.
Which question do you want me to address?
Both.
So what was the one that wasn't about insecurities? What was the other one?
Cutting your friends out for your spouse?
Oh yeah. I already said my take on that. I already said my take. But I'm going just the insecurities. Insecurities, the prefix to insecurities is in. In means self. I have nothing to do with yourself. I have nothing to do with managing who you are as a person and what you feel and your thoughts and everything. If it was about me, they would be called execurities, because that's external, not internal, right? And so it's nothing about me. But my thing is, these are things that you catch in the dating phase. You don't let this carry over into marriage. In the dating phase, either you're thirsty or not, you cut them. So no, the insecurities things, that's personal. I personally don't date or talk to people who have like these high insecurity issues, because if we try to grow something together, I don't need you worrying about if I'm down for you or not. I don't need that personally. And I'm a dude where everyone knows. A lot of people know me. And a lot of people interact with me and they consider me friend and all these different things. And I don't need to come home and need you questioning, are we together or not, or are we? I don't need that. Personally, I don't need that. It's too much for me. So insecurities, that's on you, and that's something you should address. Now, the other question where Lynn that was talking about if your husband or if your spouse sees a friend and you gotta cut them friends, I don't think that's their role. I think you as a person should know or view friendships that you need to cut or not. Every friendship is not meant to last forever. Every friendship is not meant to last for 2 years. Every friendship is not meant to last for 2 days. And that's something that you have to understand. That's something that you have to cut off. And then I want to talk about the conversation with the guy on the phone call, the first phone call that came in. I just think that the labels that we have given to our spouse, I think we say our spouse is supposed to be our best friend, and we can't have a best friend. I believe that Jesus is supposed to be the person that we can have secrets with. I believe that there's certain stuff that my spouse or my relationship will never know or need to know because I talked to Jesus about that. And I believe that importance of a spouse has this importance where I won't necessarily have secrets with my best friend that my spouse doesn't know, but I can still have a friendship that's not intimate or closest relationship as a marriage. And I just think, we're sitting here trying to put everything together, and it's not that. You have a best friend, yes. You have a wifey and or husband, yes. And you have Jesus, period. Ain't no more to it. I just ain't no more to it.
Security part. Let me hear from Darlencia before we go to anyone else.
I have a question after
that. Regarding insecurities, I do not believe that you are. Can we just give it up for Pastor Claudius, please? Like, he just preached the word insecurity, insecurity. Like, I'm gonna write that down. But I think that's super true. So personally, for me, I'm in a business with a close friend of mine who's a guy, and we dance compa. That's like a main thing that we do. And as we know, compa is very like intimate. And a lot of people will think that hum and I, are in a relationship, but we're not. And if I were to when I get in a relationship, if my husband or my boyfriend were to say, "Oh, I want you to cut this off because I don't like the way he touches you, or I don't like the way that he dances," I'm just going. It's just kind of like it's kind of like I can't even. It would just be something that I would not be willing to do. I understand the point of, just like Gillian was saying, I understand the point of respecting your spouse and your other person, the person that you're dating, respecting them. But I believe that there has to be a reason. There's a reason why a person wants you to do whatever they want you to do. And we have to get to the bottom of that. You can't tell me that you wouldn't want me to, you met me dancing with this person, right? Doing this group. But now because maybe you don't know how to really dance, or maybe, I don't know, whatever the insecurity may be, but it don't have anything to do with me. And I won't, drop my friendships or my business relationships because of whatever you have going on internally. But we could talk about it though, and we could get to the bottom of it.
Wait a second, time out. So, Jolene, we know it compa, how compa can get with the hands and everything. So Darlene's telling me, your man sees his hands going and your man is like, cut that out. You're gonna be like, oh, you gotta go somewhere. I'm gonna keep doing my guyad.
I don't know. That's kind of
okay. But we're talking about it though. Like, so how and I, we will have an understanding about it, because everyone knows if you meet me, that's a part of me. So if you know me as, you get what I'm saying? So you already know that's what I do. So you would have to tell me from the jump that, hey, I'm not really comfortable with this. And I mean, we could try to find ways that you could be more comfortable with it, but it's not like, it's a dream of mine. It's a passion that I have. I teach dance for a living. So I just can't really see myself stop doing that or letting a person go because my guy is not really comfortable with it. But I could understand, though. I definitely could understand, because compa is a very intimate dance.
All right.
Why?
Before we
Why?
move on, guys, Sephora, hold on to that question real quick. We have a caller. Yes. Hello.
Hi. Hello.
Hey.
Good evening, everybody. I just want to say I like your show. I like you guys' show. You're doing a great job. And I would just want to comment about the insecurity part. I just feel like yes and no. The partner is not responsible for the insecurity, but if the partner create this insecurity, I think they are responsible in the sense that they have now making sure that they fix that issue. Like, for example, in a marriage, like if you're married and your partner cheated on you, it could be either like the female or the male. The person that commit that adultery or that act has to, if they're willing to move forward, now have to behave or do certain steps for a period of time to reassure that, okay, I did that and this is what I'm gonna do. For example, you could say, okay, now I used to lie to you and I said I'm going to the store, I end up somewhere else, and I'm gonna go to the store and I said, oh honey, I just get to the store, do you need anything? Or some people might like, okay, I'm not over my friend and I just get here. You need to talk to somebody, because most likely if you're a couple, most of our friends are gonna be mutual. So you just have to reassure the person and regain that person's trust so you can move forward. Because that's why, for me, I said, yes, you are responsible for that part of the insecurity. But in another way, you are not. But if that person is insecure with anybody whomever you talk to, they're not okay with it, and they have a problem with it, that's different. But when you create the act in a relationship, you are responsible to make that person regain the trust for you again. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for calling in. We appreciate your question and point of view. Thank you very much. All right. I know you guys heard this. Sephora, I know you had a question for a while. Go ahead.
Okay. Why does society have such a bad name towards a guy best friend and a girl best friend? Like, why is that such a problem to people? Because, like, for me, it's like if I had a significant other and he had a female best friend, like, I would be okay with that. But as long as you let, like, there's boundaries with that. And I know that there's nothing more that is going on, and I respect that. And like she said, like, we're mutual friends, like, and I'm sure that my significant other's best friend, me and her will be cool too. Or whereas my guy best friend will be cool with him too. So why is that such a problem with
I think
society to have a girl best friend or a guy best friend?
I think for me, it's not so much if it's a detrimental issue. For me, is that I've seen so many cross-sex relationship at the best friend status, and then they just develop a relationship and become significant other, and it leads on to marriage. So then I always ask the question, if the friendship was actually platonic from the beginning, at one point in a friendship, or the best friendship as we're leaving it as that, at what point, what nature of the relationship, what shifted to now where we're moving from a platonic stage to now we have feelings for a significant other? This is something that I've always been puzzled on. It can't be that, you guys were friends for all of a sudden, and then one very day throughout the year, we decided to date each other. So I guess I've always had a struggle understanding, and this is why for me I said that they can't be best friends. Friends they can be, but not best friends, because what point do you wake up as a best friend and decide that, you know what, I actually have feelings for you? I can name several of my influences. And honestly, that is a beautiful way to have an actual marriage or whatever it may be, because someone knows you well. But what is the nature of this friendship? At what point did it actually shift? I could never wrap my fingers around that. I couldn't.
But
Very
if
good
you're
point.
married
Very
with
good
that
point.
person, why is it such a problem? You know, if you're married, you know that person is that was his best friend, and you guys are together. Like, why should you have that worry in the back of your head that, oh, maybe he's gonna do this and that with the best friend? Like,
See,
I feel like if you're
it's not
dating,
See,
it's not walking in with the insecurity that, oh, this can possibly happen, this can change. First of all, in order to have a best friend relationship, it takes a level of time, commitment, um, things that you were probably doing with them to sustain that actual best friend relationship. Now things are going to have to change because now you're married. So for me, I see that it's not that, oh, I have an issue, but now along the lines of you're going to have that best friend, guess what? If my spouse has a female best friend, she's also going to become mine as well. Because now at this point, is it about me being insecurity? No, absolutely not. But if this one unit, we work as one team. So whatever they share with you, they share with me as well too. I don't have in the back of my mind that, things to change. My point when I was addressing is, especially when I see it often in a single status, you see cross-sex relationships, that's fine. One person breaks up with their significant other, best friends link, best friends start dating, best friends get married. So my question always lies is, what point did that shift? Because if I'm single and then my best friend is a male, and then all of a sudden something doesn't work out with me and my significant other, do I just shift and just start having feelings for my best friend? Like, what happened? I thought we were best friends. This was completely platonic. Like, what changed? I'm talking about from that specific angle.
I would
okay.
say that there's feelings involved before. But I have a question for the host. You
We
have a
have a
best
couple
friend, right?
questions though. Sephora, hold up, hold off on that. We have a few questions. There's a question on YouTube. It says, after you cut them off, I guess that's pertaining to the scenario where your spouse asks you to cut your friends off, right? It says, after you cut them off, what happens if the relationship doesn't work out? Do you shamefully pick that friend back up?
Now you're gonna have vacation says you're gonna be someone.
Manly. You gonna do that walk of shame?
So, what do you guys think?
So I'll go on this one. So I learned that lesson firsthand when I was younger. I've seen people do it, and that's why I vowed to myself I'll never do that. So that's why I said you have the boundaries, right? When you get married, when you get into a deep relationship, you set certain boundaries where you're not as close as you used to be, right? But I don't believe in, unless the person is bad for you and your relationship, then okay, cut them off. But if the person is fine, they respect them. No, you should not cut someone off just because you're in a relationship. That's toxic in itself. Like, how bad are the insecurities that you need to cut everybody else off? And God forbid, we hope it doesn't happen. But if things mess up between you and your spouse and everything breaks up, now you're looking around for comfort and all your friends are gone. Then what? Then you have to rethink your existence. So no, I don't think you should ever go to that extreme of just cut it off, have no friends, and just focus on your spouse, and you don't nurture your other relationships as well.
I
Thank you,
agree. I
Max.
see that. I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, Gila.
I agree with Max. I see
Oh,
that
darling,
so much. I have a lot of female friends who, who experience that, and that's brings us to my point earlier that like we're created to have relationships. Everyone has a place in our lives. So when you are in a relationship, with whether it's marriage or just dating, your friends play a role. And again, just like as we all kind of agree that there needs to be boundaries, because again, God forbid if that relationship doesn't work out, especially if it's a marriage and you're looking for your friends, but your spouse said, I want you to cut all your friends off. What are you going to do? So it's just, it's a real hard game. Not hard game, but you just really, it's the spirit of discernment. You really have to pray about these things because, it's it could be a lot.
In a marriage,
I guess someone had a
believe that-
question for you. Oh, sorry, Sephora. I think someone had a question for Darlencia on Facebook. They said, I guess that's according to your previous point earlier. They said, would you be comfortable with your boyfriend dancing intimately with his female best friend or business partner?
Who asked that question?
So tell us, Darlencia.
It's not about me. It's about everyone else.
Oh. You gotta answer that. I'm sorry.
I mean, are we speaking about like dancing with his mom, his sister, his aunt?
Partner.
That's fine.
No, his best friend. His best friend.
No, his best friend.
Don't try to question it. We know.
Come on. Come on. That should be a yes, right?
Alright. We're not gonna do double standards, but okay.
Wow.
Mercy. Here we go.
I'm gonna answer. Alright. Honestly speaking, I will have to be fair. And again, I believe if we have a conversation understanding, like, like we're just, we're going to a gathering or something like that. There's going to be compa music playing. We're going to be dancing. I don't see why you would want to dance with someone else. But if you do want to do that, I would respect that. But again, if I'm in a relationship, I will tell my dance partner, like, all right, there are some things that we're going to change now. Like, we can't do certain moves or certain things like that. I will expect that same respect from my guy and from whoever he's dancing with. So, yeah.
All right. And we have one more question on Facebook. Let's take those questions, guys, because we only have about 8 minutes until we end the show. So we have one more question, then we'll take the call. The question says, what would you guys do if your best friend confesses their love for you while you're dating or married?
This is her point, though. You just answer. You answer.
No, I'm gonna let y'all answer this one right here.
No, you answer.
It depends on you. It depends on you as a person. What do you want to do? It just if you want to go this route with your best friend, if you're not married, of course. But if you don't want to go that route, it's just up to you. Even if you are married, you should have that respect or that commitment to your spouse not to go down that route, not to go down that road. Yeah. The thing is, they can still have feelings. They can acknowledge them, but you gotta be like, well, you should have told me 2 years ago, because here we are, and I'm not going back. So I wish you the best. I'm gonna see you for lunch next week, and that's just what it is. So it's just you.
But Claudius, even if they give that response, it's going to change the dynamic friendship. It's going
to change the dynamics if you let it change the dynamics. If you let it change it. If it's going to change if you let it change. It's based off what you do. This is your life. This is not their life. This is not your mama's life. This is your life. The dynamics of the interaction is based off what you allowed to come in and not allowed to come in. Period.
Claude, I got a question. So yes, you're right. It's your life, right? But if the person says, all of a sudden I'm feeling you, you saying nothing's going to change?
Is it asking me?
Is that what you saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Personally, if it's my friends, I'm probably going to laugh. That's just me as a person.
Let me take this. Let's take this last call, guys. Let's take this last call real quick. Hello?
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 Yeah, I have a question. All right, so my question is, should your spouse also have a friendship with your best friend?
Of course.
Can you repeat that for me a little louder, please?
Okay, my question is, should your spouse also have a friendship or a relationship with your best friend?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
They said, should your spouse have a friendship or relationship with your best friend?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Are we speaking of girl best friend or guy best friend now?
It don't matter.
Either.
Anything.
Either
It don't
way.
even matter.
I feel like our friends should be mutually. Like our friends should be mutual. Like, you know, if I've been dating you or if I've been with you,
Yes, I
you're gonna
said,
know my
shouldn't
friend.
your spouse also have a friendship with your best friend?
Can you repeat
Play
that?
one time.
Oh, okay, okay. So the call's gone. All right, guys.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Max. You had one last point.
No, I was just saying, yeah. The answer is yeah. You should, if your friend, if you have some friends, your best friend, whatever, your spouse should be in their lives as well. So yes.
Your friends should be mutual.
They
Like
don't
you
have to
should
be
know
buddy
each
buddy.
other's
Yeah.
friends. House stands. There
I
should
don't think they have to be
One
buddy
has-
buddy, but
Well,
they should definitely have interaction.
Go ahead. I can't really hear you, Claudius.
You're too far.
I don't think they have to be buddy buddy, but I definitely think they can have an interaction. My best friend, I'm very cool with his girlfriend. Very cool with her. Like we all hang out together. So
Okay, okay.
Oh,
Well,
you addressed the other
guys,
question.
all good things must come to an end. It's about to be the hour. I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. I want to thank my amazing panel for joining me tonight with this hot topic. Thank you guys again for your time. Thank you for your opinions, for answering our questions. Thank you, our guests, for your questions. Have a good night, everyone. Tune in on Wednesday for a topic reveal, and I'll see you guys next week.